I'd always told my son to steer clear of the basement. But things took a turn when he tied the knot with a woman who seemed more concerned with our money than with him. So, I decided to beef up the security on the door, adding a new lock and a code. One night, while I was away on a business trip, my phone rang with urgency. It was my son. He was in a panic. "Dad, she's gotten into the basement," he blurted out. I'd been preparing for this day, so I wasn't entirely surprised. I was sitting in this conference room in Denver as the meeting was winding down, and my phone vibrated. It was odd to see Jasper's name pinging during work hours, so I knew it had to be important. "Hey Jasper, what's happening?" I asked, feeling the adrenaline kick in. "Dad, she figured out the code. She's seen everything in the basement," he said, his voice trembling. My grip failed, and papers went fluttering to the floor. That door had been under my watch for 23 years, with the right time never arriving. Or so I thought. "What exactly did she see?" I managed to ask, trying to keep my composure. "Everything, I'm afraid. She's really mad and saying horrible things about you and Mom." In the background, I could hear her yelling, the words biting. "She wants to talk to you," he mentioned. "No, don't pass the phone to her," I quickly responded. "Jasper, focus. Is she still down there?" "No, she's moved upstairs. She's pacing and checking her phone," he informed me. I exhaled heavily, shutting my eyes. Over the years, I'd learned when a storm was about to break. And this one? It was the tempest I'd been readying for since Jasper brought Amara into our lives 3 years ago. Something never felt right with her. Whether it was intuition or hard-earned experience, I could see through her charming act. Her keen interest in our family home, particularly the antiques and rare paintings my late wife Margaret adored, raised alarms. Her curiosity in our finances was yet another warning. Margaret would have sensed it as well. She always had a knack for understanding people better than I ever did. But with her gone 15 years now, Jasper was left vulnerable when Amara showed up. Jasper's voice brought me back. "Dad, are you there?" "I'm here, son. I'm catching the next flight back." Hearing the doubt in his voice stung as he asked, "Is what she's saying true? That you've been keeping things from me, playing puppet master?" Those words cut deep. After a lifetime of safeguarding our family and its legacy, reaching this point, where my own son questioned my motives, was hard to swallow. "Jasper, everything I've done is out of love, to shield you. I needed him to hold on to that faith. Can you do that for me?" The pause in our conversation loomed, carrying the weight of countless memories, from cheering sidelines and patched-up knees to every comforting whisper. It was all balanced on whether he'd see through Amara's spite. Finally, he spoke up. "All right, but Dad, she's fuming. I haven't seen her like this before." Naturally, she was upset. Her meticulous plans were unraveling. I ensured that ever since Jasper popped the big question. "I'll be back tonight," I told him. "Don't let her take anything from the basement, and don't put your name on anything she hands you. Can you promise me that?" He agreed, and after we hung up, I immediately began searching for flights, my hands all jittery. It wasn't fear I felt. It was the weariness of years spent guarding secrets my son had yet to comprehend. The basement always remained out of bounds. I used to tell young Jasper that it was dangerous, wobbly stairs, old chemicals. As he grew, those tales became less convincing, but it was always about keeping him safe. Within those walls, everything was mine. The documents, the tokens, the cherished mementos. It was my little sanctuary. Stacks of old business files were scattered everywhere, begging to be organized. It was also where I kept reminders that brought back too many memories of his mom. I didn't lie, but I didn't mention every detail. After Margaret passed, I spent endless nights sorting through our life together, trying to piece everything together. Her clothes, her jewelry, the art she painted. they mattered. But the paperwork? That was crucial. Her will? She trusted me to keep it safe. 6 months before cancer took her, she worked with her lawyer to set up a trust, while her mind was still clear enough to see what was coming. Margaret was always a step ahead, always planning further than anyone else. Growing up, she saw poverty firsthand and watched her mom suffer after her dad died, mistreated by a mean stepfather. She made me swear we wouldn't face the same. "Elliot, promise me," she whispered, her weak hand in mine at the hospital one evening. "Promise you'll safeguard what we built. Do it for Jasper. People will see him as an easy target, and he's too kind to notice. You must protect him." I swore I would, and dedicated the next 15 years to fiercely keeping that promise. The trust she established was ironclad. Everything, the house, savings, investments, life insurance, it all went into a trust only Jasper could access. No spouse or future ex could touch it. It was his alone. Margaret left no loopholes thanks to expert estate planning with her lawyer. As time went on, I added my own precautions. When Jasper started getting serious about dating in his 20s, I silently consulted lawyers about prenuptial agreements, securing assets here in Colorado, and spousal claims on inherited things. I stayed informed about every aspect. When Jasper told me about Amara showing off the engagement ring with such hope, I acted like the supportive dad. I hugged him and said I was happy. Then I immediately called my lawyer, making sure everything was documented and solid. The prenup idea? Mine. But I pitched it as the lawyer's standard advice for wealthy families. Jasper didn't love having the talk with Amara, but I insisted. She signed without a second thought, likely thinking she could eventually sway Jasper. Little did she know. 3 hours later, I found myself at the airport, feeling a knot in my stomach. I sent Jasper a couple of quick texts. "Hang in there, I'm on my way." He texted back with a simple, "Okay, see you soon." On the flight, I couldn't stop thinking about Margaret. How she'd predicted this day might come, how she'd protected our son even after she was gone. I missed her voice, wishing she were there to tell me I did the right thing. But it was just me and the weight I'd been carrying for the past 15 years. Finally, the day I had feared and prepared for had arrived, unleashing chaos far beyond my control. The trip felt like it was dragging on forever. Each minute stretched out, intensifying my anxiety. As I watched the clouds roll by the window, I replayed the last 3 years over and over in my head like a stuck movie. Things felt off right from the start. The first dinner? I knew it. Jasper was 32 when he met Amara at a fancy fundraiser. Came back that week lighting up with stories about this incredible woman who got him, who joked the way he did, and shared his interests. I allowed myself to hope since he'd had a tough time with failed relationships in his 20s and truly deserved happiness. Then I met her. Amara, to be honest, was gorgeous. She had that polished look of a 28-year-old who spent a lot on salons and curated outfits. She walked in for dinner wearing a dress that cost more than some people's rent. Her heels tapped confidently on my hardwood floor. Her dark, wavy hair looked effortlessly styled, like it had been done at a salon. "Mr. Thorne, it's a pleasure to meet you," she said, offering her perfectly manicured hand. "Jasper tells me all about you and your lovely home." When she mentioned home, she gave it a little more meaning, and that's when I first sensed something was off. Throughout dinner she was charming, curious about my job, about Margaret, and how grown up Jasper seemed. She laughed at my stories, gently tapped Jasper's arm every so often, and complimented everything from the roast to the silverware. Yet, I kept a close watch on her eyes. They were darting around, busy taking everything in. When she thought no one was watching, she'd look over the silver candlesticks on the mantel, the Persian rug in the living room, and the original oil paintings Margaret loved. I even caught her lightly brushing the kitchen's marble countertop, as if she were checking it out, assessing. After she left that night, Jasper was thrilled. "She's amazing, isn't she, Dad? I think she's the one." I showed a smile and suggested he take his time getting to know her. Meanwhile, inside, the alarms in my mind were blaring. From then on, I was really on my toes, staying watchful. About 6 months into their relationship, Amara started pushing a bit more. She pointed out that the house could use some upgrades. Didn't Jasper think the kitchen looked kind of old-fashioned? How about a full redo of the master bathroom? She knew a fantastic contractor. Jasper mentioned it casually over a Sunday lunch. "Amara thinks we should remodel a few rooms. She's really got an eye for design, Dad. You should see the plans she showed me." It was clear she was easing into a sense of ownership over a house she didn't live in, a house tied up in a trust she knew zilch about. "The house is great as is," I responded carefully. "Your mother and I put a lot of thought into every element. I'm not ready to change a thing." Jasper's face showed a flicker of irritation. "Dad, it's been 15 years. Don't you think Mom would want the house to reflect a new era?" It was a shrewd play on emotions, cunningly manipulative. He was using Margaret's memory like a pawn, making me seem rooted in the past and obstinate. And poor Jasper, eager to impress the woman he adored, was clueless to what was happening. Her suggestions didn't stop. They shifted to questions via Jasper. Shouldn't I be thinking about retirement plans? What about downsizing? What would become of the house if something happened to me? Had I updated my will lately? Each inquiry came through Jasper, sounding innocent and forward-thinking. But I detected what was really being asked beneath the surface. It was all about the money. I deftly sidestepped, redirected conversations, kept my answers vague, and confirmed every legal detail with my lawyer to ensure nothing was left vulnerable. When Jasper announced he was planning to propose, my heart grew heavy. The ring, an exquisite antique piece costing him $8,000, was something he diligently saved up for. In his eyes, I saw hope, the tender vulnerability of a man truly in love. "I'm happy for you, son," I said, giving him a warm hug. And I meant it. I wanted nothing more than Jasper's happiness, hoping he'd find with Amara the joy Margaret and I once shared. But deep down, I knew Amara wasn't the one to bring him that. Their wedding ended up being lavish. Amara opted for a $45,000 venue, $12,000 on flowers, and an $8,000 gown. Jasper was financially stretched to the limit, refusing to ask me for help. I gifted them $20,000, knowing it would mainly cover wedding expenses. Amara thanked me with a quick kiss on the cheek, calling me a generous father-in-law, but her eyes were still cold, still calculating. To her, the $20,000 was nice, but the real prize was tucked away in trust documents buried down in my basement, blissfully unaware she'd never get her hands on it. Once Amara and Jasper officially became husband and wife, things got a bit tense. Amara moved into Jasper's simple condo, which he had bought with his earnings from working as an architect. It didn't take long for her to start complaining. It felt too small for her liking. She thought they needed to upgrade, and even suggested they move into my place to save some cash. I put my foot down on that idea without hesitation. The house stays as is. It's going to be Jasper's to deal with when I'm gone, but for now, it's my space. I could feel Amara's anger bubbling beneath the surface before she forced a polite smile and said, "Of course, Dad, I get it." Still, she wasn't about to throw in the towel and quickly tried manipulating Jasper in different ways. Whenever they dropped by, I'd catch snippets of their whispers. They'd discuss how I was getting older and express concern over me being in such a big house alone. What if I had an accident? What if something went wrong? I must admit, she had patience. She knew the art of waiting. Then my phone buzzed and snapped me out of my thoughts. A message from Jasper popped up. "She wants to call you. Should I let her?" I shot back a quick response. "No, wait until I'm back home. Stay out of it." I saw the little typing bubble pop up and disappear on screen before he finally replied, "Okay." That message might as well have signaled the distance growing between us, thanks to Amara's scheming to pit him against me. When the plane landed at 7:43 p.m., it felt like the world had flipped during the 3 days I was away. I grabbed my carry-on and didn't waste a second getting to my car at long-term parking. I spent the 32-minute drive home crafting my speech, thinking about how I'd explain my need to protect Jasper over the last 15 years without coming across as the overprotective father Amara likely painted me to be. When I pulled into the driveway, both of their cars were already parked, Jasper's sturdy Toyota and Amara's flashy BMW, which she'd convinced him to co-sign for just half a year after the wedding. It was a pricey $48,000, and Jasper was the one footing the bill. I took a moment before getting out, mustering some courage. I could almost hear Margaret's voice in my mind telling me, "Elliot, you've got more strength than you realize. Keep our son safe." With my bag tucked under my arm, I headed to the front door and barely had my key ready before it swung open. Jasper stood there, looking worn down. His normally neat hair was a mess, and his eyes revealed how tired he was. He seemed to have aged years in just a day. "Dad," he said softly. Amara showed up behind him, casual in jeans and a silk blouse, but her air was anything but relaxed. She was like a hunter, ready to pounce. "Elliot," she welcomed me with a sugary voice hiding a sharp edge. "We need to talk." I walked into my own home, the one Margaret and I had bought 37 years back. It was the place we raised our son, packed with every memory we've built. "Yes," I said, keeping my tone even. "I believe it's time we did." Amara's smile was sharp, prepared for whatever was coming, and I was too. We all assembled in the living room, feeling like pieces on a chessboard. I settled into my usual place in the well-loved leather recliner that had been molded over the years to fit me perfectly. Jasper was perched on the edge of the couch, looking like he might sprint away at any moment. Amara sat at the opposite end, her posture perfect and focused squarely on me. "I'll cut to the chase," Amara began without giving anyone else a chance to speak. "I found documents in the basement, paperwork on trusts, estates, and legal shields that Jasper knew nothing about." Jasper winced when she used the word husband, as though it was a weapon. "Family documents are kept secure for a reason," I answered calmly. "That's why the basement stays locked." "Secure from your own son?" She raised an eyebrow challengingly. "Or from me?" The question lingered in the air like smoke. Jasper was fixated on his hands, his jaw tensed, wishing he could vanish into the couch. "Both," I replied, realizing honesty was the best policy now. "The trust was set up by Margaret before she died. It's there to protect assets for Jasper's future, separate from anything marital." Amara let out a laugh that felt more like icicles piercing the air. "So, marital property means you protected your family's wealth from me right from the get-go, huh?" "I made sure that everything Margaret and I worked for would go to our son, just like she always wanted," I explained. Jasper, with his voice choked up, finally chimed in. "Dad, you should have been up front with me about all this. I needed to know." Hearing his pain felt like a punch to the gut, way worse than anything Amara could throw my way. It was his sense of betrayal I dreaded most. "You're right, son," I admitted, looking him straight in the eyes. "I should have said something. I kept waiting for a perfect moment, and before I knew it, 3 years had vanished." Amara snorted with disbelief. "A perfect moment? Or were you waiting for things to fall apart, just so you could keep control?" I wanted to see if you'd show your true intentions, I said softly. And now, it's obvious. Her cheeks turned a fiery red. My intentions? I love Jasper. I stood with him all this time, tolerating your chilly reception and thinly veiled contempt, she said, continuing her rant. But by then, I could see through it all, her true purpose laid bare. Every family dinner, she put on this facade while I knew she was sizing up our lives, trying to plot her way to wealth that was never hers to begin with. Jasper protested half-heartedly. That's not true. But even he didn't sound convinced. Meanwhile, Amara softened her tone, attempting sincerity. Jasper, darling, your dad's been feeding you lies about me. He's always been the puppet master, can't you see? Keeping my voice calm, I said, I see perfectly. 6 months into the marriage, you had Jasper co-sign for a $48,000 car, didn't you? A car you picked and drive, yet he's footing the bill. Jasper looked shocked. How did you find out about that? He asked. Because I pay attention to what's happening with my son. I noticed when his plans to save for a house got derailed, and his funds started dwindling. You called it needing a reliable car, right? Amara tried to justify. A BMW is essential? I stayed cool, factual. Jasper, what's the monthly payout on that car? He paused, but finally said, $732. And what about your almost new Toyota that was doing just fine? $285, he quietly replied. So, due to Amara's needs, you're forking out an extra $440 every single month. Turning to her, I asked, what else? Upscale furniture? An $8,000 vacation in Cabo? The kitchen makeover you talked about wanting in this house? I wanted to create a good life for us, Amara insisted, now sounding cornered. No, you were spending what wasn't yours, trying to tap into wealth you never earned. I grabbed my phone, pulling up an email I prepared before leaving Denver. I touched base with my lawyer. The prenup you signed? Still 100% binding and valid. Amara froze. What prenup? The one signed 3 days before the wedding. My lawyer went through it with you. It states clearly that all family trust assets stay separate, and if there's a split, neither side can make claims on the other's assets from before the marriage. I watched the truth hit her, her face going pale as anger tangled with realization. She likely skimmed over the documents, focusing on the wedding and status. You tricked me, she whispered. I protected my son. Big difference. Jasper was caught in the middle, trying to make sense of it all. I don't understand. Amara, we discussed the prenup. I thought it was just a technicality, she argued, her voice climbing. I thought your dad was being extra careful, not trying to cut me out. Cut you out of what wasn't yours to begin with, I pointed out. The house, trust property, the investments, also under the trust. My life insurance? Directly to Jasper, flowing into the trust. Even if I were gone tomorrow, not a penny would go to you. The silence was awkward and heavy. Jasper looked as if I'd just slapped him, and Amara seemed ready to do the same to me. So that's how it is, Amara finally said, breaking the tension. You've made sure that even if I stick around in this marriage for 50 years, I'll never really be part of this family. You never wanted to be part of this family, I countered. You wanted to skip to an easy life without earning it. For 3 years, I've watched you pull Jasper away from his friends, create drama over the smallest things, and spend his money like it grew on trees while giving nothing in return. Nothing, she said, her voice rising. I gave up my place to live with him. I've supported his career, showed up at his work events, and played the perfect wife. You haven't worked since you got married, I pointed out. You mentioned to Jasper you'd start job hunting in marketing. It's hard to believe it's been almost 3 years since she said she was looking into it. So, Amara, where's this job? She opened her mouth to respond, but then clammed up. Meanwhile, Jasper was really starting to put the pieces together, realizing all those interview excuses and the endless need for more time to figure out what she wanted was a pattern. "You've got to be joking," Amara finally burst, standing up suddenly. "Have you been snooping around like I'm a criminal? Just watching out for my son, and what I've found only confirms my suspicions," I replied, eyeing her. Then she turned to Jasper, eyes blazing. "Are you really going to let him speak to me like this? I'm supposed to be your wife." Jasper glanced between us, looking pale. "Amara, is this happening? Have you really not been job hunting?" "I've been building a life with you," she said, but there was an edge of panic in her voice. "I've been creating our home, planning for both of our futures." "Planning for a future in my house, you mean?" I chimed in. "You've brought up so many times how it'd be better if you and Jasper moved in here, how I'm aging and could use help with the property, and how you could manage everything if you guys lived here." "That's called taking care of family," Amara snapped back defensively. "No," I softly replied. "That's trying to set yourself up to take control of things you think you'll eventually own." Suddenly Jasper got up. "I need to step outside, clear my head." He headed for the back door, stepping out onto the patio, where I saw him gripping the railing with his shoulders shaking slightly. As soon as he left, Amara turned on me. "You're destroying my marriage." "You did that on your own," I responded. "The moment you decided to use my son as a stepping stone rather than love him for who he is." Her mask finally crumbled. "You self-righteous fool. You think you're so noble, protecting your precious legacy, but you've just made sure your son will never have a normal marriage, never find someone who feels like an equal." "A true equal," I said. "Wouldn't need to possess money she hasn't earned. Wouldn't need control over assets she didn't contribute to building." "I could take you to court," she threatened. "Challenge the trust, the prenup, everything." "You could try," I said calmly. "But you'd lose. Margaret's lawyer saw to that. But go ahead if you want to waste your money." She glared at me with such hatred, and right then, I saw the real Amara, far from the charming woman who entered my life 3 years ago. Not the loving partner she pretended to be, but someone furious that her plans fell apart. "This isn't over," she declared. "Oh, it is," I replied. Stepping out onto the deck, I caught sight of Jasper clenching the railing so fiercely, his knuckles were bone white. It was a brisk evening, the air filled with the scent of honeysuckle from the plants Margaret had put in along the fence 2 decades ago. It should have felt serene, yet there was an unsettling tension, like the eye of a storm. "Hey, son," I murmured gently as I made my way outside. He didn't acknowledge me, just stayed staring straight ahead. "How long have you known about Amara and what she's after?" I asked. "Since that first dinner," he admitted, his voice shaky. "And you didn't bring it up?" "Would you have listened, Jasper?" I asked, shifting closer so we both gazed into the yard Margaret had adored. "You were completely in love, the happiest I'd seen you in ages. What could I say? That your girlfriend was just there for the cash? You'd have chosen her and frozen me out. So, you let me marry her? Devote my life to someone you thought had ulterior motives?" The raw pain in his voice hit me hard. I hoped I was wrong. I crossed my fingers that I was, but just in case, I made sure you'd be safe. "Safe?" he retorted, bitterness lacing his words. "Feels like you've just been pulling the strings, making my choices and managing what I know like I can't handle it all myself." "Listen, the trust wasn't my doing, Jasper. Your mom put that into place." That got his attention. He turned, eyes red and filled with pain. "Mom put a trust in place to stop my wife from accessing the family cash. No, your mom made the trust to shield you from anyone that might zero in on what we built through sweat and tears. Margaret grew up in tough times, watching firsthand as her own mom lost everything, duped by a husband only after wealth, Determined not to repeat those mistakes, she vowed it wouldn't happen to her. I went to my wallet, found an old, cherished photo I'd carried around for over a decade. It was a picture of Margaret in the hospital, looking worn but smiling, holding young Jasper's hand. Back then, Jasper was just stepping into his junior year in college, still hanging on to hope that his mom would conquer cancer. About 6 months before she left us, your mom would meet with her attorney, meticulously laying out her plans. She wanted the house, any investments, and the insurance to be tightly knit in a trust, meant for you when the moment was right. And she made me vow to manage it until you'd found your place in life. Jasper took the picture in his trembling hands. She never mentioned it, he said quietly. She didn't want you to feel like you stood apart from your friends, I explained. Her idea was for you to grow into someone who carved out his own path, built his own career, and most of all, developed his own character. The trust was a safety net, not a free pass. As far as the prenup goes, yeah, that was on me. Once I saw Amara's keen interest in our home and lifestyle, I knew more precautions were needed. I wish I'd been upfront with you about my concerns. I should have. But Jasper, I've seen you brush off my worries before. Remember when you lent that woman $5,000 at 25 and she up and vanished without a trace? He winced at the memory. That was different, Dad. Sarah was in a tough spot. You brushed off my advice about getting it in writing, and next thing you know, she was gone. Or when you were 28, and your buddy Connor talked you into dropping $12,000 into his startup, only for it to flop 6 months later? You said I didn't understand startups or trust your ability to decide. Jasper sat there, deep in his thoughts, realizing he couldn't argue with reality. My son, always kind-hearted, believed everyone was as genuine as he was, and could often see the good in others, even when it wasn't there. Margaret adored him for this quality, but it also made her anxious at times. Suddenly, we heard the patio door slide open, and Amara appeared. She looked nothing like her usual composed self. Her hair was messy, and her makeup was smudged, giving her an almost wild appearance. "I can hear you all talking about me like I'm some kind of villain out here," she burst out. Remaining calm, I replied, "We're just dealing with the facts," adding that these were facts she had been avoiding for years. She walked further in, saying, "All right, you want facts? Yes, I did imagine living in this house one day. I did dream of inheriting it. Is that so wrong, Elliot?" I agreed that hoping for an inheritance was not a crime, but conspiring to move in before I was even gone, attempting to force Jasper to get me to sign things over, and researching how to challenge my estate plans was another story altogether. Her eyes widened in shock as she claimed, "I never searched any of that stuff." "But your internet history tells a different story," I pointed out. "I have excellent security on my Wi-Fi, Amara, and I've seen all the searches you've made on my network. Trust fund loopholes, contesting a prenup, spousal rights in Colorado. You've been secretly planning this over a year." Jasper turned to her in disbelief, asking, "Amara, is this true?" She laughed, but it was a bitter sound, and she retorted, "What did you expect? Do you think I want to be stuck in that little apartment forever, watching you go to work every day while your dad sits on his fortune treating me like dirt?" "I never treated you poorly," I responded as calmly as I could. "I gave you the respect you were due, no more, no less. From the moment you walked into our lives, it was clear what you were about. I think you felt inadequate for my son because you didn't come from wealth like Margaret did, but my wife built her own success from scratch. She grew up in a trailer park. Her father was a mechanic who passed away when she was just 12, and her mom cleaned houses for a living. Yet Margaret put herself through college and more, becoming a successful CPA and building our life from the ground up. "Don't you dare compare her to Margaret," I said sharply, watching Amara's surprise. She probably thought Margaret was born with everything, and didn't realize we had worked for what we had. The difference between you and Margaret is that she didn't expect handouts. She didn't see others' achievements as something she was entitled to. She worked hard, saved up, and made sacrifices. You haven't done any of that. I've made sacrifices for this marriage, Amara shouted. I gave up my independence, my own place, and my lifestyle to build a life with Jasper. You left a $600 a month studio to move into Jasper's entirely paid-off condo, I countered. That's not a sacrifice. That's an upgrade. You haven't built anything. You've simply used Jasper's money without contributing anything back. No job, no savings, nothing but spending. Jasper's voice was barely above a whisper. Dad. But he offered no defense of Amara. His silence was deafening. Amara's face flushed with anger, her breathing rapid. This is exactly what you wanted, isn't it? To turn him against me, to destroy what we have. What you have was built on deception, I said quietly. I didn't destroy it. I just brought the truth to light. You son of a... she began, but stopped, changing her tone and pleading to Jasper. Jasper, sweetheart, don't let him do this to us. We can work through this. Let's try counseling, talk it out. But you need to decide. Is it me or him? This was the final straw, the ultimate choice she was banking on Jasper making in her favor, valuing his love for her more than anything. Jasper looked at her, tears in his eyes, struggling with the turmoil. We all sensed the importance of this moment. When we started dating, he said slowly, you told me you worked in marketing, that you left your job because of a toxic work environment, and you were searching for something better, remember? Amara's nod was weary. I've been managing all our bills for the last 3 years, he went on, keeping our joint account afloat, and now I realize I've never seen a deposit from you, not even once. Last Christmas you said you scored a freelance job, so where's that money, Amara? She gulped, clearly uneasy. It didn't work out, she said softly. And what about the other opportunities? The September interview you were excited about and the networking event in June that looked promising? He questioned. The job market's really rough right now, she explained defensively. For 3 whole years. His voice trembled. I've been working 50-hour weeks while you stayed home. I really believed you were making an effort. Was any of it genuine? The silence between them was heavy. She could have spun a web of lies, found more excuses, but something shifted inside her, or maybe she just stopped the charade. I never intended to work, she admitted, laying it all out. I wanted someone to take care of me. Is that such a bad thing? I thought you had real wealth, that I wouldn't need to worry about a dull office job. But then I learned it all depended on your dad, and since then, I've felt stuck. Jasper recoiled slightly, as if her words hit him like a physical blow. So, you married me thinking I was loaded, he said. I married you because you were kind, and I had feelings for you. And yes, I thought we'd have a stable financial future. That's not a crime. It's part of planning for what's ahead. But you weren't honest, he said, his voice barely more than a whisper, about your career intentions, your feelings, about who you really are. I didn't lie about caring for you, she maintained. But you weren't completely truthful about most things either. He ran his fingers through his hair and mumbled, God, Dad was right about everything. Amara's stance shifted from defensive to angry. Fine. Yes, your father was right. I wanted the comfort, this house, a life without financial anxiety. I thought marrying you would provide that. Is this what you wanted to hear? Jasper looked crushed, devastated by the truth that the woman he'd devoted himself to had been acting the whole time. He had been more of a means to an end than an actual partner. I think you should leave, Jasper said quietly. What? His tone was calm but firm. I think you need to pack a few things and go. Stay with your sister or get a hotel for now. I need space to think. Amara glared, Her expression hardened and calculated. "This is half my home, Jasper. We're married. You can't just kick me out." "Actually," I chimed in, "the condo belongs to Jasper alone. He bought it independently before you both met. Legally, you have no claim to it." She turned to me, her glare sharp. "You've checked into that too?" I nodded with a calm assurance. "I know every asset my son has and how it's secured. It's not about control, it's about looking out for him." Fear flickered briefly in her eyes for the first time. She understood she'd lost. "If I walk out now, I'm not coming back," she said, but Jasper's gaze was unwavering. "I know." The sound of suitcase wheels dragging across the floor echoed through the house, marking the end of their chapter together. It was 9:15 p.m. I was in the living room while Jasper stood upstairs at the doorway of what was his room, watching his wife frantically pack 3 years into 2 bags. I could hear her footsteps, swift, angry, as she moved from room to room, slamming drawers. She lingered, possibly hoping he'd change his mind, ask her to stay, tell her he didn't mean it. But he remained silent. By the time she reappeared downstairs, she was a far cry from the composed woman she'd been. Her hair was thrown into a messy ponytail, mascara streaked her face. She didn't look at either of us as she dragged her bags toward the door, but she paused. "Jasper," she said, breaking the silence, "I need money for a hotel. I've got nowhere else to go tonight." He slowly pulled out his wallet, handing her 3 $20 bills. $60, just enough for a short motel stay. She gazed at the cash as if it stung her hand. $60, after 3 years, she huffed. "You know you have access to our joint account," Jasper said quietly. "There's about $800 there. Take what you need." Her laugh was sharp and bitter. "What I need is for you to see how your dad's turned you against me. But I guess that won't happen, will it?" She pulled open the door, letting the cool night air rush in, carrying the scent of rain. She hesitated briefly in the doorway, one last chance to try to sway him, to crack the facade. But instead, she just walked out. The door gently closed behind her, and soon after, the sound of her BMW revving up and driving away echoed in the silence she left behind. Suddenly, the house felt empty and unnervingly quiet. Jasper stood still for a moment, his eyes fixed on the door that had just shut. Before long, his shoulders trembled, and he sank down onto the bottom step, burying his face in his hands. Heart-wrenching sobs filled the silence, and I joined him on the step, offering comfort. He leaned into me, just as he did when he was little. My 63-year-old arms encircled my 35-year-old son as he let his emotions spill out. "I'm such an idiot," he mumbled through his tears. "How did I not see this coming?" "You loved her," I murmured gently. "Love has a way of blinding us to things we choose not to see." 3 whole years wasted on someone who didn't actually care, he lamented. "But not wasted," I countered. "You learned a lot, about people, about yourself, and what a real partner should be. Growth often comes from pain. That's just how life goes." He pulled back a bit, wiping his eyes with his sleeve. "You tried to warn me. Not explicitly, but I sensed your uneasiness. I thought you were just being overprotective, unwilling to let go. But you saw right through her, didn't you?" "I've had more experience with people," I sighed. "It's simpler to see the truth when love isn't clouding your vision." He let out a shaky chuckle. "Mom would have seen it too, huh? The moment Amara walked through the door." "Oh, without a doubt," I smiled. "Margaret always understood people well." Jasper slumped back against the stairs, worn out. "Tell me everything about the trust. No more holding back." So there on those well-worn steps, where so much of our lives had unfolded, I laid it all out for him. In those final months, Margaret's focus was all on the future, putting together plans she'd never witness come to fruition. She partnered with her lawyer to create a sturdy plan, a financial buffer to shield Jasper from those who might see him only as a walking bank account, not for who he truly is. This foolproof trust held our house, our combined investments, and the life insurance policy. The total came to around $1.3 million. Jasper's eyes widened in surprise. "That much?" he asked. "Your mother had a gift with money management," I explained. "We led a modest lifestyle and made prudent investments. Just the house is valued at around $600,000, and the diversified investments have steadily appreciated. It's all yours when I'm gone, or if I choose to transfer control. I originally planned to do it on your 40th birthday." I paused to gather my thoughts. "Your mom and I felt that was a reasonable age, not too old, but mature enough to handle financial security wisely. That was the plan. 5 more years. However, after tonight, I believe we should consult the attorney sooner. You need to understand what you own, what it's worth, and how to safeguard it." He nodded, absorbing the information. "What about the prenup Amara signed?" he inquired. "Would it have held if we stayed married?" "Absolutely," I reassured him. "That prenup was airtight. Even if the two of you had stayed together for 50 years, the trust assets would have remained separate. She would never have gotten her hands on them. That must have driven her mad once she realized." "That's why she snooped around the basement," Jasper concluded. "She was probably trying to crack the code, keeping an eye on me as I entered it, searching for a pattern." "What was the code?" Jasper asked. "Your mom's birthday, 032758, March 27th, 1958. His eyes glistened with fresh tears. "Of course it was," he murmured softly. "I've done everything I can, Jasper, to honor your mom's wishes. She wanted you well protected, to have options, and to avoid financial hardship. And she wanted your partner to cherish you for who you are, not for what you could offer. Amara fell short of that very requirement." "She did," he conceded. I placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "Better to discover it in 3 years than in 30, before bringing kids into the picture, and before life became even more chaotic." He remained silent for a while, then asked, "Do you think she ever loved me at all? Even a little?" Hearing that broke my heart the most. "I can't say for sure, son. Maybe in her own way, but not with the type of love that sustains a life together. Her love came with conditions, expectations, and always had an out." He murmured, "I poured my heart and soul into giving her a life she dreamed of. But it always seemed like it was never enough, right? Because what truly mattered to her was hidden in that basement, and I couldn't be the one to provide it." I gently reminded him, "And what she longed for wasn't something you could offer her in return. She knew that, and it's been eating away at her. That's why she's been so insistent about moving in, pushing for changes, trying to get me to rearrange things." With a slow and pained rise, Jasper said, "I need to see the basement, whatever Mom left for me." I gave a nod and led him to the basement door. The keypad still displayed the last entry at 2:22 p.m. the previous day, right when I was stuck in a meeting over in Denver, the same time Amara had managed to unlock the code. I keyed in the usual numbers, and the lock clicked open. The basement wasn't as lavish as the rest of the house. The floors were plain concrete, and the beams were exposed, yet everything was neatly arranged. A wall of filing cabinets was filled with well-labeled folders, personal papers, financial information, insurance, health records, property titles. But what truly caught Jasper's attention was the opposite wall. Shelves completely filled with meticulously kept photo albums, boxes containing Margaret's belongings, her favorite novels, a jewelry box, and her art supplies. "You saved it all," he choked out. "I couldn't bear to let go," I admitted. This was my refuge for remembering her, for keeping her presence near. That's the real reason I didn't let you venture down here. It was more than just about the documents. It was this. I wasn't ready for the pain of seeing you sift through her things, reliving the heartache. Jasper wandered to the shelves and gingerly picked up one of the photo albums. He opened it to a random page, revealing a picture of Margaret, around 25, grinning directly at the lens. Her hair a wild mess in the breeze. She looked young, vibrant, and full of life. Sometimes I forget her before the illness, he said quietly. I forget she was more than just her sickness. I nodded in agreement. She was phenomenal, I affirmed. Brilliant, hilarious, and incredibly stubborn. Once she made up her mind, there was no changing it. And she resolved to protect you, putting everything she had into making sure you'd be okay. Setting the album aside, he opened a filing cabinet. Inside were files carefully marked with Margaret's elegant handwriting, trust papers, her will, life insurance details, property titles, investment portfolios. Right in front was a manila envelope bearing Jasper's name. He pulled it out, his hands trembling. "What's this?" he asked. "A letter," I explained. "She wrote it 2 weeks before she left us. She told me to give it to you when the timing felt right. I've held on to it until now, waiting for just the right moment." "Can I read it now?" he inquired. "It's all yours, son. Always has been." He opened the envelope, unfolding several pages filled with Margaret's familiar handwriting. As he read, tears silently streamed down his face. He spent several minutes absorbed in her words while I quietly stood by, remembering the day she wrote them with determination despite her frailty. When he finished, he looked up at me, saying, "She knew. Even back then, she understood I'd need protection. She anticipated someone trying to take advantage of me. Your mom saw the world in all its shades, both the good and the bad," I replied, "and she loved you enough to prepare for it all." He tenderly refolded the letter, clutching it to his heart. "I miss her so much, Dad." "I do too, son. Every single day." We stood there in the basement, surrounded by the tokens of a life that had been, and a love that had outlasted death. Even though Margaret had been gone for 15 years, she was still protecting Jasper, still guiding both of us. And there, in that moment, the secrets between Jasper and me faded away, replaced by the bond strengthened by the truth and the unwavering love of a woman who prepared us for a world where she couldn't be with us physically. It's been half a year since that crazy night when Amara took off with just a couple of bags and $60 in her pocket. 6 months of picking up the pieces, of finding out who she is after everything fell apart. The divorce was quick, all thanks to the prenup, which made it pretty straightforward. At first, Amara tried to fight it, but after her lawyer checked out the paperwork, he advised her to just accept what was on the table. So, she walked away with what she had before the marriage, her clothes and a car loan she couldn't really afford. Last I heard, she relocated to Arizona to stay with her sister. Jasper cut her off completely after she phoned him 17 times during the first week, switching between pleading for another chance and yelling at him for blowing it. But he didn't waver. He was done. Sunday was our day, like clockwork. Jasper would swing by for dinner. Sometimes we'd mess around in the kitchen, attempting Margaret's recipes and usually ending up with hilarious disasters. Other times, we'd just grab some takeout and plop down in front of the TV for the game. Mostly, we just hung out and talked. "So, I've met someone," Jasper said, taking a bite of the roast chicken that, miraculously, wasn't burnt. I glanced over at him, slightly shocked. "It's not serious or anything, just a couple of coffee dates. Her name's Diane. She designs landscapes for a living. We met at that conference I went to last month." He gave a grin, the kind that lit up his face in a way I hadn't seen for ages. Here's the kicker. She insisted on paying for her own coffee, said she always does that on first dates. I couldn't help but feel my heart warm. Smart woman, I said. I told her about everything, my family, the divorce, the reasons behind it all. I figured if that was going to scare her away, so be it. And what did she say? I asked. Jasper replied, she told me her brother's been through something similar, taken for everything by someone who saw him as a bank, not a person. She totally understood. We just let the moment hang there in silence for a bit until Jasper put his fork down and looked over at me. Hey, Dad, I need to apologize, he said. What for? I asked. For not believing in you, for those times I trusted Amara over what you tried to tell me, for making you feel like you had to tiptoe around the truth. I shook my head. You don't need to apologize for caring about someone, even if they didn't deserve it. But I'm sorry, too, for missing what was right in front of me, for trying so hard to show I could handle things and ignoring the red flags. He paused, taking a deep breath. I've been thinking about Mom a lot, about all she dealt with, setting things up while knowing she wouldn't be here, imagining how scared she must have been about not being around to watch over me. I nodded, remembering how she was. She was terrified. She'd wake up crying some nights, worried about what might happen to you without us, afraid someone might tear apart everything we set up for you. The trust wasn't about holding you down. It was always about love. Everything Mom did came from love, especially the hard calls. Jasper reached into his pocket, pulling out a letter from Margaret that had gotten pretty worn from being read over and over. She wrote something here that sticks with me, he said, holding the letter. She said, true love isn't about money or titles. It's about those little moments, fighting through things together, standing by each other's side, no matter how rough it gets. She was a wise woman, wasn't she? She sure was, I agreed, and she nailed it. Amara didn't stick around during the rough patches. She was in it for an easy life, thought she hit the jackpot with me. Once she realized the money wasn't flowing, she was planning her exit. But you learned from it, and that's what matters, I reminded him. I have. I know what to avoid now, and I'd rather be alone than with someone who's all about what I can give. I raised my glass. Here's to learning and growing. He clinked his glass to mine, and we took a sip. The wine, chosen by Margaret 2 decades ago, had been saved for a special occasion, and this moment sure felt like one. Jasper's been thinking a lot about the trust, he mentioned to me. He was pondering what we ought to do with it. What do you mean? I asked. You told me Mom wanted to give me options, to make sure money wasn't something I'd ever be worried about. But I've been an architect for 13 years. I've built up my career and savings. I don't need the trust to survive, he explained. Your mom wanted you to have peace of mind, I reminded him. I understand that, but I'm sure she'd want the money to make a difference, he said, eyes lighting up with an idea. How about we create a scholarship for kids who lose a parent to cancer to help with college expenses like Mom's trust did for me? Tears filled my eyes at the thought. She'd absolutely love that, I said. We could call it the Margaret Thorne Memorial Scholarship, keep some money in the trust for maintaining the house and as a safety net, and use the rest to assist kids facing what I went through. Your mom would be proud beyond words, I assured him. I hope so, Jasper sighed, and I hope she'd see I finally got what she was teaching me. That real legacy is more than money. It's about who you are, surrounding yourself with good people, holding on to what truly matters, and releasing the rest. After we finished dinner, we moved to the living room. I showed Jasper how I'd been organizing Margaret's things. We decided we'd tackle the basement together, deciding what to keep and what to pass on. It was time, we both agreed, to stop treating that space like a shrine and instead as a connection to her memory. I want to keep her art supplies, Jasper declared, picking up a box of oil paints. Maybe even try painting. She always said I had her eye for color. Take whatever you want. It's all yours now, not because of a trust fund or legalities, but because you're her son. That's your real legacy, I told him. He looked around, absorbing all the pieces of his mother's life carefully preserved. You know what's funny? Amara wasted 3 years scheming to get her hands on the money and property. She never asked about Mom, never wondered who she really was, what passions drove her, what made her extraordinary. All she saw were the possessions. It's easy to see a lot about someone by their belongings, even if you can't fully grasp who they are. That pretty much sums up Amara. I found an old picture of Margaret holding baby Jasper, both captured in a moment of shared laughter. This is the kind of love I want, I said to Dad. The kind that doesn't diminish when someone's gone, that lingers through memories, lessons, and tiny moments like these. Now that you know what you're after, you'll find it, he reassured me. Later, as we closed up the basement, he asked, "Thinking of changing the code?" I paused before answering. No, I think I'll keep Mom's birthday. It's a little reminder of what really counts. Love over money or possessions. We made our way upstairs, and I brewed some coffee while Dad took care of the dishes, a Sunday dinner ritual we had settled into. It felt soothing, like we were building something new on the sturdy foundation Margaret had prepared for us. Dad, I said as I was leaving, thank you. For what? He asked, looking surprised. For looking out for me even when I fought it, for seeing things I missed, for keeping promises to Mom even when it wasn't easy for me to accept. He hugged me tightly. I'd do it all over again in a heartbeat. Once he left, I lingered in the living room, eyes on a picture of Margaret. She was 35, beaming with a smile and eyes full of life. We did it, I murmured. He's going to be all right. I could almost sense her relief and pride, just like she always was when one of our plans succeeded. It's been 15 years since she left, but in truth, she never really did. Margaret was in the safety nets, in each lesson Jasper learned, in every Sunday dinner we shared. Sure, the trust took care of the money, but the true legacy Margaret left wasn't something written down. It lived in the wisdom, love, and integrity she passed to her son. Amara left empty-handed because she missed it entirely. She looked at the house, the accounts, the insurance policies, thinking those were the treasures, completely unaware of where the real value lay. As I climbed into bed that night, I was enveloped by a wave of serenity that I hadn't felt in a long time. It wasn't just the calm that comes from a lack of chaos. It was something way more profound. I had this overwhelming realization that I'd stayed true to my commitments, that Margaret's love was so strong it even surpassed death. And the best part? Our son now had the freedom to create the kind of life he truly deserved. Sure, the basement door was locked, but what it safeguarded went beyond wealth. It was all about the memories, the respect, and a love story that kicked off 4 decades ago and was still going strong. In the grand scheme of things, that was the legacy that held the most significance.